In today's block, we have a multitude of episodes that explore getting at truths and finding freedom in one way or another. This is Best of Trek, Worst of Trek. I'm your host, Dustin Wing. Repenting its sins at 352, Condensed Religion, or New Eden. As a red angel signal appears tens of thousands of light years away, Pike just now finds out that the ship can travel on a network of mushrooms, and decides it's time to dust off Stamets' tardigrade DNA, to find another one of them colonies of humans nobody knew about halfway into the Beta Quadrant. What they find are a group of people that have mixed all major Earth religions into one, and just kind of ended up here right after World War III. Meanwhile, Tilly gets tossed across the cargo bay while studying a dark matter asteroid, which brings out her fungal friend May. Detmer gets to do donuts in Discovery using the gravity of the dark matter asteroid they previously captured, to alter the course of other asteroids about to hit this colony. All in all, a pretty good episode of feel-good Star Trek, with some minor breaking of General Order 1 that explores the rarely talked about human religions. In Search of Freedom at 351, Soul Searching, or Power Play. Troy senses something from a lifeless planet, and based on that alone, Riker and an away team crash a shuttle pod and force O'Brien to suffer a 50-50 chance of successfully beaming down to retrieve them. Of course, they're taken over by energy beings that are bent on taking over the ship and freeing others exiled here centuries before as prisoners. It's a pretty straightforward Trek plot that's been done a few times. Not a lot good or bad to say about it, other than being nominated for an Emmy in sound editing. Just another middle-of-the-road episode, getting down with your bad self at 350. Second Chances. Or Through the Looking Glass. In the second DS9 Mirror episode, Smiley takes Ben hostage to the other side, and convinces him to help in the Terrans' struggle for freedom against the Alliance by playing the part of the other Cisco that died in this universe. The only thing that sways him is the mission to capture alternate Jennifer Sisko, who works in weapons design for the Alliance. The coolest things are Sisko and alternate Jadzia having some alone time, and Tim Russ doing a Mirror Tuvok. Though there's a glaring contradiction in the Emperor's New Cloak about the Mirror Universe not having cloaking devices, even though we see Alliance ships decloaking in this episode 4 seasons prior. This was a fun way to stir up Sisko's feelings about his dead wife. Running a con at 349, A Contract is a Contract is a Contract. Or Devil's Due. I've seen this one on others' worst lists, and honestly, it's too much fun, and has too cohesive a plot to be anywhere near the bottom. This was a rewritten script from the abandoned Star Trek Phase 2. It does have more of a TOS feel, but updated to be slightly less hokey than it would have been in the 70s. As a non-Federation planet with a Federation research team on it descends into chaos, the Enterprise responds to a call for evacuation. Apparently, these people made a deal with the devil 1,000 years ago, and now Man-Bear-Pig has come to collect on the damnation part of the contract. Only, it's just a woman using techno tricks to mess with the inhabitants enough so that they'll work for her. Data as an arbiter of the contract is a really wonderful role for Brett Spiner. And the zany transporter tricks are used sparingly enough to be funny. This one was Emmy nominated for costume design, and some of Ardra's costumes are pretty great. This is a solidly fun watch. Using diplomacy at 348, Kaizon Federation, or Alliances. As Voyager moves deeper into Kaizon space, the attacks by various factions leave multiple crew members dead, and Kathy's had enough. So Janeway does what a Federation captain does best. Negotiate. She calls a meeting of all the Kaizon faction leaders and the race we learn they overthrew and stole all their tech from, the Trabe. Janeway tries to bring the Federation to this little slice of the Delta Quadrant. It shows that Federation ideals aren't for every part of space, as the whole thing literally blows up in Kate's face, as the Trabe try to use this opportunity to wipe the Kaizon leaders out, and the eye for an eye mentality continues. A nice try on Janeway's part, even if it ultimately went nowhere. Adding a third entry at 347, Dressing Down. Or Unification 3. Building off the story of unification from TNG, apparently after the destruction of Romulus, The Vulcans and Romulans eventually will reunify as one people under the new planetary name Navarre. Burnham goes home to try and persuade them to share science data about the burn. Apparently, the Centuries and the burn have amplified Vulcan and Romulans' already xenophobic tendencies, and they're not into sharing. Out of nowhere, Michael finds out her mom ended up here and is now a Qowat Malat sister. In some kind of old Vulcan tradition about trials to find truth, her mother, who was supposed to be her advocate, gives her a complete dressing down to the Navarre leaders. While it does give Michael a chance to build herself back up to impress the actual Vulcan leader Tarina, a little bit of that absolute candor might have come into play before she assailed her own defendant. In the end, Michael gets the data she was after. Another pretty open and shut middle-of-the-pack Trek episode. Taking time off at 3:46. Picard is Human, Part 3. Or Captain's Holiday. Riker and Troy pretty much kick Picard off the ship for some badly needed shore leave. He's set up for some great sexual innuendo and gets the kind of vacation Jean-Luc can actually get down on. A Dixon Hill mystery that involves archaeology and getting dirty rather than flashing horgons by the pool. Max Grodensheik makes his debut as the first of many Ferengi characters, as he follows Picard and Vash on the search for the Taksu Tat. This is the first time in the run of TNG we see Jean-Luc open up as more than just a captain, and might be capable of real feelings, but not till truly after he's taken by the Borg at the end of this season. Love Vash's swimsuit, and have nothing bad to say about this one. A compelling mystery romance plot, being deceitful at 3:45, one-man show, or Renaissance Man. In Voyager's penultimate episode, the Doctor is blackmailed into pretending to be Janeway and ejecting the warp core, so a pair of bumbling mercenaries can steal it. Along the way, he's forced to play Chakotay and B'Elanna in a bit of comic misadventure. We see Kim in the big chair for a minute, and a warp core ejection working for only the second time in the franchise. There's a really fun scene where Tuvok has to play Where's Waldo in a holodeck full of Bob Picardos. Overall, a fun, if ultimately pointless final episode focusing on the Doctor. Remembering those that came before at number 344. Pioneers. Or First Flight. Another episode in the block that's a ton of fun and a bit of backstory in the human development of warp technology. After learning of the death of a colleague that would have been the captain of the NX-02, Johnny Archer tells T'Pol the story of their test pilot rivalry years before, and how without them breaking regulations, the Vulcans would have likely set their development back another decade. The ending with the two of them doing the unauthorized test feels a lot like Quantum Leap's first episode where Scott Bakula is also a test pilot. We get to meet the waitress Ruby that Trip and Malcolm found were Eskimo brothers through in Shuttle Pod 1. At the end of the story, Archer and T'Pol do discover a dark matter nebula and name it in honor of Captain Robinson, a purely satisfying hour of television. Looking at Prejudice at 3:43, Changelings Be Free, or Chimera. As O'Brien laments not getting a present for his wife, he and Odo encounter a changeling in spacefaring form. Not one of the Gamma Quadrant founders, but one of the 100 like Odo sent out throughout the galaxy. The rest of the episode is about the perceptions that solids don't trust changelings. Meanwhile, this changeling kind of goes out of his way to be rude and condescending, so I'm not sure if the message of inclusivity is knocked down a bit by this. Even after Laz commits the murder of an intolerant Klingon, Kira lets him go knowing she'll lose Odo, but his happiness is paramount to her even if that doesn't involve her. Certainly an interesting look at freedoms and perceptions.
Computer. That program is available.
Thanks, Major. Major. Thanks, Major. Major.
EMH protocols are offline.
Thanks, Major.
Unable to comply. Access to the holodeck has been restricted.
Major.
Warp ejection system enabled.
Thanks, Major.
Transporters are offline.
Thanks, Major.
Unable to comply.
Thanks, Major.